You've moved in with your nan and you are a carer for her.
Dementia is essentially the biggest killer, so I know that she is, going to leave this earth because of it. And that really didn't bother me. I just thought there's a bit of fight in this lady. When she's most difficult is when she's most frightened and she needs the most love.
Was there any question of putting her in a care home? Hey, welcome to the Lifestyle Prescription with me, Rena Annabelle. This episode is all about dementia, specifically caring for someone who has dementia. So according to the NHS, there are around 850,000 people in the UK who are living with dementia. And I'm sure most of us know someone who has been affected by the condition. But what if your loved one or friend has been diagnosed with dementia? Are you prepared with what is to come? Are you prepared for the challenges of supporting them and caring for them? Would you be prepared to turn your whole life around to look after them? Because sometimes that is what it takes. So let me introduce my guests now. Award-winning executive podcast producer and broadcaster, Amy Elizabeth. Hello.
Such a lovely introduction. Thank you.
Amy, I'm so happy that you're joining me in the studio.
Thank you for having me. No, thank you.
So I've had the pleasure of working with you, right? And it's been a while, but I've kind of been through socials, following your journey, and you're doing amazing things. You worked at BBC for over a decade. Mm-hmm. You've had some really amazing podcasts. I'm a Celeb, Get Me Out of Here, The Masked Singer, what was it, Love Island as well?
Strictly. Yeah.
Strictly. So some amazing stuff. So I've been watching your career progression and being like, do you know what? She's winning. I love it.
It always looks glossy on the socials, doesn't it? But thank you so much, darling.
So really happy for you and love to see it. But also another thing that I saw, which I was really surprised about, was that you've moved in with your nan and you are a carer for her. And so, you've started sharing the story of your nan having dementia, you looking after her. And I know that you were in two minds about sharing that, weren't you?
Massively. I've lived with my grandmother now for, God, I never call her grandmother, but I feel like when you're in a formal setting, grandmother.
Say nan.
But if she had me say that, she'd be like, I'm nan. So I've lived with her now for 3 years as her sort of live-in carer. But my granddad passed away a year before that, and I was very, very hands-on once he passed away. So really looking back, I wish I'd moved in earlier.
Right.
But with being a carer, it kind of creeps up on you sometimes. I think unless somebody has, God forbid, a major accident where 1 minute they're completely independent and then they need full-time care, then it's a real sort of clear decision. But with a lot of caring and a lot of conditions, it's sort of a gradual thing until one day you realise, oh, actually, they're really dependent on me, or I can't trust them to make a decision on their own, or I can't trust them to be alone. But yeah, the reason I was in two minds is because dementia is obviously like a mind disease. Well, Alzheimer's, I should say, is a mind disease. And I'm very mindful of my nan's dignity. So a lot of the care I do is things like incontinence. And, there might be things that she does that I think are absolutely adorable, but, really sort of quite silly, innocent, almost childlike things, or sometimes quite ridiculous. And they can make the crux of actually the if someone asks you what's the hardest thing, some of those things are quite dramatic, and I think, I don't want to almost embarrass her publicly, or how would she feel? She was such a dignified person, especially that generation. I feel like our generation are very good for being like, bowel cancer, this is what really happens when you have bowel cancer with a bowel babe, or this is the reality of being a mother of three, and we're a lot more happy to sort of remove the mask and be very real about it and raw. But the older generation were quite proud and dignified. My nan was a immigrant who came over from Ireland, and she came from extreme poverty and worked so hard. So I know for her to then, for somebody to then say, oh, she does this, she does that, I didn't know if that would sit right with her. So I was quite mindful. But the more time that passed and the more I saw about dementia, I felt like I just put myself in the shoes of someone that was newly diagnosed or a family member, and how terrified they would be. A lot of charities do incredible work, and it's so needed. There's so much money needs to be ploughed into dementia care and cure. But to generate money, a lot of charities, they'll do the horror stories, or there's a campaign at the moment that you die like multiple times when you have dementia, and they run through all the different ways that you sort of die. And I thought, God, if you're newly diagnosed and you're sat watching that, you're going to think, I'm going to be a burden on my family, I don't want to live anymore. It'd be terrifying. So because I have some really, really gorgeous moments with my nan, and I'm very mindful that sometimes I make it almost sound too Disney-like. Do you know what I mean? Because I'm naturally quite a positive person. But I just sort of wanted to show that it's not a complete death sentence for you and your family. There's still some beautiful moments that can be found in it, and that's really important. So I wanted to share that. And also, when people did find out that I was doing the care, because it's that hard thing where you don't want to seem like a glory hunter. You know, when someone does something nice and then they tell all about it on social media.
People on the street today, like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I know, I'm just like...
Sometimes
really?
I'm like, if you're doing a good deed, you don't need to shout about it, because then it's less of a good deed. So I didn't want to be like, oh, look at me, I'm a carer and I'm lovely. But when people did find out that I was a carer through maybe word of mouth or, you know, they were quite shocked. People had worked with me for months and didn't know my living situation. And then, you know, slowly people start to say to me, oh, my grandmother's been diagnosed too. Can I talk to you about it? You know, or someone I know's just found out. Do you mind if I put them in touch with you? And I realised that I was helping quite a lot of people secretly behind the scenes. And then I was publicly supporting so many other charities, because when I worked for the BBC, I did a lot for Access All, which is their sort of disability sector. So I was doing so much to bring awareness for other people and other diseases and other illnesses, and I wasn't doing it really for dementia because of this whole, oh my goodness, make sure grandma doesn't feel exposed, or let's, you know, not say anything that's, you know, not too savoury. So yeah, then a really nice opportunity came up with Good Housekeeping magazine, where they wanted to do a case study on someone with dementia, and we did that, and we had a photo shoot in the house, and Nan absolutely loved it. And I thought, okay, I can tread a fine line here. If it's with social media or a podcast that I trust, like with you, I can share as much as I am comfortable sharing. And if I'm completely honest, there's some things like, there's some videos I've got on my phone where she's done something so out of character, so the only word I can use is silly. And I don't mean that patronising somebody, but I know that they would go viral if I shared those videos, because they're just so like, oh my goodness, as if a cute old person would do that. But then are we laughing at her? Are we exploiting her? It's really tricky.
It's a fine line, isn't it?
So I could probably go viral 10 times over with the content I've got on my phone, but that's not, I don't want that win for, it's not me. If you want to laugh at me and I do something silly for content, you know, that's my choice. But as her carer, I have to be responsible for her. And it's sometimes tempting when you see so many children on social media doing sweet things and people aren't really laughing at them. It's just, that's adorable. It's a little bit different if it's an elderly person who's got cognitive decline. That's a little bit different. So that's where the battle lies for me. And I'm still kind of pacing that out. Whereas I want to spread positive awareness. I want to help other people. I'm very blessed that, you know, I've got somebody like Nan who loves me doing pictures with her and dressing her up. I dressed up for Halloween and she absolutely loved it. So there's some really beautiful moments, but it's just balancing that with respect and dignity, really.
Yeah. So in terms of the Good Housekeeping magazine, you said that she really liked it.
She loved it, yeah.
And having her makeup done and all this kind of stuff, right? But how much does she kind of understand about what is happening and how she's changing?
Now she's so severe. So she's had dementia for about 8 years. So it's very far progressed now. So she actually randomly does understand like my phone. So if I'm out on my phone and because I sleep next to her in bed quite a lot, she'll like get it and start swiping. And I know that sounds, you know, when I say that to my friends who have children, they're like, oh yeah, kids do that all the time. But the thing with dementia is you don't have a short-term memory. So as a child, you're moving forward, you're learning. Every day you're advancing. But with dementia, every day you're declining. So to learn a new skill as someone with dementia, as advanced as my nan is almost impossible because you cannot remember your short-term memory. But yeah, she's still kind of, she loves if I say, oh, let's take a little selfie just for memories. You know, it's not going to go anywhere because, you know, I know dementia is essentially the biggest killer. So I know that she is, you know, going to leave this earth because of it. So because of that, you want to take pictures all the time. And she loves posing for them, and she loves dressing up. She wouldn't understand the concept of social media now. But what I am very blessed with is when she still could understand, at the beginning of the pandemic, my sister started to do a lot. My sister was made redundant, and so she started doing a lot more online while searching for a job just to be proactive. And my nan completely understood that. And we actually had quite a lot of conversations about awareness and things, and she was really on board with it. So I feel like she definitely has that comprehension. And with being in a magazine, I mean, the reason I adore magazines so much, I love magazines, and I wish there was more. I hate how they're going out of production so much. That love came from my nan. She loved magazines. She always had loads of magazines. And I know that she's seen herself in it and she loves it, but obviously she forgets instantly. But while the whole process was happening, I just thought, oh my goodness, if my granddad was here, he'd be beaming with pride. She'd be sending it out to every relative. Like, I knew that she would love it.
Yeah.
So it's kind of remembering who that person was or is at their core and doing what feels right for them. You know, some people are more extroverts than others and things like that.
Yeah. I just want to rewind a little bit to, you said she was diagnosed 8 years ago.
Yes.
So what were those early signs where your family felt like, okay, let's take her to the doctors and see what this is?
Well, the diagnosis itself is actually very such a grey area for us, because it was me first that noticed that her mind wasn't working as it should, and that thought maybe it might be dementia. And that was because initially, so as you know, when we worked together, I was freelance, self-employed, so I didn't have a set structure of my day. I was working some Mondays, some Sundays. It was all over the place. And I'd visit my grandparents all the time. They lived down the road.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah,
I remember you talking about your grandparents so much.
All the time, like multiple times a week, like adored them. But when I'd say to my nan, oh, I'm off on Wednesday, so I might come around, I'm not sure. And then it would get to Thursday morning and my mum would say, oh, your nan's rang, she's really upset, she cooked you dinner last night and you said you were going to go round. And I said, oh, no, I just said I'm off on Wednesday, I might. Like, it wasn't set in stone. And a few things happened like that where, and, you know, I just thought, well, is that just grandparents getting excited? Like, I might be round, I'm not working Friday, I might be round. And then in their heads, they're looking forward to it so much it becomes fact. So that was sort of the beginning of, like, me and Nan kind of bickering a bit. And I was thinking, I never actually said that, Mum. But then I noticed she opened the freezer and loads of peas fell out, you know, the frozen veg. Yeah. But she just kicked it under the freezer. Now, she was so house proud. She would never, ever do that. She would always sweep them up. And a few days later, something happened. A bit of cheese fell on the floor and she just kicked it. And I just thought, that is just not Nan. And then when she was talking, she'd forget people's names. Not close family members, but, you know, distant person. And it'd just take her a few attempts. So I got her one of those puzzle books and I said to my granddad, I'm a bit worried about Nan, because my granddad was 5 years older, but his mind was so sharp. And I said, a little bit worried about Nan. So we need to get her to do this puzzle book. If I ask her to do it, she won't do it because she'll put everyone else before herself. Yeah. She went to church every day. She'd go to the supermarket. She's never had a car. So always looking after my granddad. So I said, we need to get her to do it. He said, oh, okay. And then she did it once and she got a few bits wrong that were quite obvious. And I said to Grandad, I was like, don't tell Nan, but she's got some bits wrong here. So I'm a little bit worried. So she needs to be doing this a lot more for her brain. He went, okay. 5 minutes later, Helen, Amy says you're getting this wrong. You need to be careful here. Da, da, da. And I was like, no, because no one wants to admit that their mind's going. So it's sort of like he couldn't keep a secret to save his life. Like, you know, they were a team. He was never going to not tell her that he was worried about her. And then, there was just like, I'm trying to think. So she used to walk into Bromley High Street to get her food shopping every day. Didn't have a car, so it was just small bits every single day. And then I said to her, Nan, you need to get taxis home with the shopping. You're getting too old to carry it. You know, she was like late 70s, early 80s. And she wouldn't have it, but I sort of nagged her about it. And then she said, the taxi drivers loved their tip. They love their tip. She kept going on about it every week. And I was thinking, what taxi driver? I thought at first, they just love this little old lady. And then I realised she was giving them £20 notes when the fare was only £4. Oh, no. So she's thinking she's giving them a fiver, saying keep the change. And they're obviously, thank you, thinking this old lady's got an inheritance that she's, dishing out. So then I was like, that's not good. So then my mum started to take a bit more care of the money. So it was just quite a sort of gradual, more gradual thing. And then I found out that actually Nan and Grandad, they went themselves sort of secretly to a memory clinic because they were a little bit worried. My granddad said they'd gone out they used to go to the Weatherspoons for lunch once a week, and my nan went to the toilet and when she came back she couldn't find him, so she was walking around and he thought, we always sit in this spot and it's not that big, it's not one of the big Weatherspoons. So he got a little bit worried, so they went to a memory clinic, but it was still kind of that thing of, is it just old age, is it just she's a little bit stressed? No one really wants to admit, especially then, dementia's so much more spoken about now, but especially then it wasn't so much spoken about. And then when the pandemic hit and my parents would it's that whole thing, you have to stay in the household, but they couldn't find, we realised then actually they can't fend for themselves, they do need someone to go around. And then we realised, actually we're carers now. Like, it kind of was a slower thing, and then getting the diagnosis was a bit harder in the pandemic. So yeah, to sort of, there wasn't really a day where one day she came back from the doctors, and like there's a storyline at the moment in Coronation Street, I think it is, where somebody goes to the doctors and finds out they've got dementia and tries to process it. With us, it was a lot more gradual, and because my grandparents didn't have the internet, I always think that's a massive blessing, because they couldn't really research it and get panicked about the future. It was more just taking it as it comes, and because I saw my nan so much, it felt quite gradual. I think if I visited once every 6 weeks, I'd notice it more dramatically. But when you're almost co-living with someone, before I'd moved in, it's like having little children, you know. If you haven't seen them for ages, everyone goes, oh, you've got so big. But if you're the mother, you maybe don't realise those tiny little steps. It's similar to that.
Yeah. So your nan is how old now?
87.
She's 87.
Yeah.
Okay. What has been the most challenging thing about watching the progression of dementia?
It's sad watching the effects on the family members that struggle with it more. So I feel like I'm quite resilient and quite strong, and I just feel really blessed I still have her. A lot of people don't have their grandparents. I feel very blessed that we laugh every single day. I feel very blessed that she has a version of it where she has had moments where she's been very scared, and I'm happy to talk about that in a moment. But on the whole, she's such a happy person. But it's sad, watching other people feel sad. Like she once said to my mum, she popped around. I brought her around actually to my mum's when she could walk very well, and we sat down in the living room, and she said to my mum, "Oh, how's your mum? I've not seen her for ages."
Oh no!
And I saw my mum's face, and I thought, I don't know how my mum's going to answer this, because she'd never said anything like that before. And my mum went, "Oh yeah, she's good. And my stomach was like, oh my God. And then, but then before my nan had left, she clocked who my mum was. So it was an instant. But then, I think my nan just walked into the living room, you know, felt a bit uneasy and was making small talk, and then sort of afterwards realised. And ironically, because dementia's not linear at all, there was bigger mistakes she made earlier on, whereas now I think she definitely knows who my mum is, but she wouldn't know any other, like there's only core family members. Also, the practical side of it is incontinence is really, really tricky with someone with dementia. You know, again, that fine line of dignity, but she would hide her nappies and things like that. And when you're trying to find a soiled nappy in the house and you can smell it and stuff like that, it's really, really tricky.
Was this before you moved in with her?
This was probably the year of my granddad passing. So
Right.
He passed away. So she's kind of living by herself, but one of us is around there all the time.
Yeah. I mean, did it get worse after he passed away?
It just has been a steady decline the whole
Right.
time. In fact, I actually think, I would never want to say it got better, but I think my granddad was so stressed because he was so worried about her falling over all the time, and he was so worried. He was just, you know, he's losing his wife. I feel like for me, as a granddaughter, the reason I can be so resilient with it is because we always think our grandparents are adorable. We have a lot more patience for them because they always had a lot more patience with us. And it's just a very sweet relationship. But I think if it was your wife or husband, it's easier to lose your temper if they get things wrong. I think when we all would come to visit and then leave, he'd want to debrief on how the family lunch was, and she couldn't remember any of it happening.
Right, because it's what they'd been used to.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, exactly. So and my granddad was such a talker. So to be having your person, that your shadow that's always been at your side, where you've discussed everything, not being able to discuss things, I think really stressed him out. That stress was projected onto Nan, and then she was more stressed. So I think actually when he passed, terrible as it was, and it was very instant, I think she is slightly calmer because the people around her have a bit more patience because that's not their spouse, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, the incontinence is really, really tricky. The lifting when we've had to do things like that. I mean, my dad is fantastic. It's not his mum, he's the son-in-law, but there is, with a lot of dementia caring, there is like lifting a lot. And
As you can't get out of bed, that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's so when she used to fall on the floor sometimes, lifting her up would be hard because she was quite a curvy woman, so that could be really difficult. And in bed, she doesn't really need lifting into bed so much now at the moment, but there's like positioning her properly on a chair, or there's getting her into the car, things like that can be really, really tricky. And then it's the emotional side. I, again, don't get too upset by it. I don't know if that's a delayed thing. I don't know if when she passes it will all hit me what I'm actually living through, because I think a lot of us, we just go into survival mode and things. But because I know we're all passing away, right? Every day, all of us get closer to death. But with dementia, it's almost like that on steroids. You're losing them so rapidly. And so I want to spend every minute with her. I want to entertain her. I want to create great memories. But that naturally means that other parts of your life massively go on hold. I've noticed that I'm a little bit less ambitious than I was because, and you know how much I love my career. Like that was my everything and my identity. But I do love spending time with her so much, or, you know, seeing friends. My friends are so important to me, and I do still see them a lot. And I know they'll be there when the inevitable happens, so you don't want to ever take anyone for granted. But also, do I want to sit in a restaurant and make small talk, or do I want to be with her? No, I want to be with her. So it's kind of like that, for me, that kind of guilt if I'm not physically with her. And no one's put that on me. No one's asked me to feel that. Like, my parents are very much like, they're very forceful. Like, you live your life. You've got one life. This isn't on you. You know, they really draw that into me. But love is love. And you just want to spend all the, you know, that's what I'm struggling with more as her dementia's got worse. Before, when it wasn't so severe, when I first moved in, we could have a really fun day out because I could take her out. So therefore, you can then do a couple of days of not doing much, just me being on my emails, her watching telly, because we've done really high quality things a few days before. But now she is a lot more housebound and, you know, it's a lot more fragile and frail. The fun things are less. There's much less we can do. So therefore, it's just sitting with her. But you could waste your life. Well, it's not a waste, but you could spend your life sitting next to somebody. Do you know what I mean? And actually, that's probably not. But that's not the right thing to do for everybody. So that's what I struggle with. Yeah, I just want to spend all my time with her, and that's not really realistic.
No, I mean, it sounds like it's the guilt, like you said, but also you want to hang on.
Yes,
it's a lot of, you want to hang on
because
to her,
every
right?
day she's getting worse.
Yeah.
So a lovely moment we might have on Monday, we might not have it 4 weeks later. So if you know that time is literally seeping through your hands like sand, you want to spend every minute with them. And again, that's, you know, for carers, it's really important that they take time for themselves and things. But that's what I find hard is I would change nappies all day long. I would sweep food up off the floor all day long. I'll do bath time all day long. It's physically tough, but I'll do it. But knowing that you're saying goodbye to somebody is really hard.
Yeah. So let's just talk about that daily routine then.
Yeah.
So what are the kind of things that you do? So you mentioned, so you change her nappies.
Yeah.
So she doesn't go to the toilet by herself.
No.
Okay. So nappies, bathing, and what, do you make food for her? And
Yes.
She eats it herself, or do you need to help her?
Yep. So the morning will be, it's just changed very recently because she's got a new bed, but I'd normally wake up next. So I used to sleep in bed with her because she'd get night terrors. So a big part of dementia for some people is hallucinations, and that's not really spoken about very much. People always focus on the memory decline, but my nan would hallucinate a lot, and it's so. I mean, you've got to laugh, so you've got to see the joy in it.
I love the fact that you are laughing.
Yeah,
I mean, I didn't know about this though. I really didn't know about this.
So thank God we live in a flat, because she would say, we'd be in bed, right? Be night time, the lights are off, and she'd be like, "Can you see that man at the end of the bed?" Oh my God. And I'm the only, there's only 2 women in the flat. Do you know what I mean? There's no men to protect us. Not that you need men, but you know what I'm saying. We can protect ourselves. But I go, what? And I'm really short-sighted. I don't know if you know that. I wear really, really thick glasses, really strong contact lenses. So I can't see if there is a man at the end of the bed.
Like, is there?
So I'm like, what? And she's got her eyesight is fantastic and her hearing's fantastic. So I'd be like, I turn the side light on. She went, no, they've just gone out there. I'm like, oh my God. So I'm creeping. Do I grab a vase? What am I going to smash over the head? You're 50-50. Most of you knows she might be hallucinating, but I live in South East London. Like, someone could be in my flat. So yeah, you know, and that would happen. And even if it's not a human, I do believe in ghosts. So sometimes, I do believe in ghosts. So we would be walking, she'd come with me then, she'd come out, right, we both of us, I mean, it's like a comedy film.
The way I'm picturing this in my mind, it's like a comedy show, you and your nan just creeping around trying to find ghosts or burglars.
And she's really strong. I know, if there was an intruder, they would want me to be attacking them, because if you got my nan at this stage, she's so physically strong, they'd have no chance. So we're walking around the flat, and then she'd say, no, there's someone there. And once you know it's definitely not an intruder, it's, like I say, I do believe in ghosts. And then, because it's when my granddad passed, sometimes I'd be like, Granddad? But luckily I was really safe if he is the ghost of the house. But yeah, she would just always be like, there's something there. And then once you put all the lights on, and that's, I think being in a flat helps. If I was in a house in the countryside, oh my goodness, it'd be terrifying. But when you like are in a busy flat, so you're like, okay. Yeah, and I just say to her like, no, it's not. And then sometimes we'd have arguments because she was like, can you not see them? And I'd be like, no, but I wouldn't get annoyed at her because I think how terrifying must it be if you genuinely can see someone, like in her mind she can see it, and someone's telling you no. Like that would be absolutely
but
terrifying.
How do you know what to do? And like, do you know what I mean? How do you know what to do? Do you play along with it? Or are you like, no, that's not happening, that's not real? Has somebody told you what to say in these instances?
No. You just, I mean, I go off her character. So if she was an anxious person, which she's not, luckily, then I probably would do a lot more reassuring in terms of like, it's okay, calm down. But at that stage, it was more like you had to be quite firm. Like, Nan, I promise you, there isn't somebody there. And I would say, I think it might be your eyesight. Even though I know her eyesight's brilliant, but it's easier to say somebody it's your eyesight than it's your mind. So then, you know, sometimes she'd be stood there rigidly in the hallway, staring at the thing, saying, "Well, will you go to bed then? I'm going to make sure he doesn't leave." And I'm like, I'm not going to go to bed. So we go and sit in the kitchen, have a cup of tea. Yeah. Eventually, she'd forget all about it. Well, very quickly. It's one blessing of dementia. She gets about it very quickly, and we'd go to bed. And that was like, maybe there was a 6-month period of that. We've not had that for ages. And then sometimes if she was in the bath, she'd suddenly, and we're on the 3rd floor, so you wouldn't, no one could see in the windows, but she'd say like, oh, my brother's out there. And I'm like, what? She's like, my brother's out there. Or your granddad's there, look at him trying to watch me. And I would just play along. That I'd go, oh, isn't granddad cheeky? He's trying to see you naked. Quick, let's have the bath and get dressed. So a lot of playful humour as well.
So do you take her out then? Is that part of your caring for her?
Yeah. She loves going out for like ice cream and like she loves food. So going out for food would be something she loves. The other day it was really heavy rain and I really wanted to take her out. So my mum and dad and me took her to a McDonald's drive-through and we ate like chips and ice cream in the back of the car. And that was still such a lovely day for her. And that's one thing I would like to say to people that are caring for someone with dementia. When it can feel a bit overwhelming, a lot of places aren't disability friendly or dementia friendly. Everyone thinks, oh, there's nothing we can do. But if you are a lonely, I mean, dementia can strike at any age, but if you are a lonely older person, just going out and feeling part of something, having change of scenery is so lovely. Yeah. It is harder to take her out now. It's a massive effort to sort of get her in a car and get her in and out. But one thing I really want to do, and one of the reasons I have spoken out more about dementia, is that when we take her to a cafe, we don't really take her out in the evening for meals, but if we take her to a cafe, me and my mum would take her out a lot for cake or ice cream or whatever. Someone with dementia is more likely to act almost like a child by knocking things over, spilling things. And when it's an elderly person, everybody stares, everybody looks, and everybody's like, it's not even, occasionally I've gone to places where they've been a bit like, oh, what's that? That person spilt that, or they've dropped that plate on the floor. But most of the time it's almost a sympathetic look. But also my nan can pick up on that. She can pick up on the fact that it's quite scary being in a new environment anyway for someone with dementia. And then everybody's on their guard a little bit, the other tables, all this. But if I go out with my friends who have children who are probably more disruptive, no, I mean, you'll have different stories because you've taken children out a lot more than I have. But generally, the cafes are on side. They understand. They'll bring out crayons and if you spill it on the floor, they'll go, don't worry, we've all had children. They expect it. That's exactly it. So they're a lot more understanding. It's a lot more of a comfortable environment for mothers because, especially if you go somewhere where there's a lot of children, you know which cafes to choose, right? So they can feel a lot more relaxed. And I would really love if we could treat people with dementia with the same respect we treat children. And that might sound wild because I know children probably deserve more respect in certain areas anyway. But if we could just do that, then the carers would feel less intimidating bringing somebody out as well, because I've got quite a thick skin. If people stare, I'll just stare back twice as hard. Like, I don't care if you're going to stare. And if you want to ask me questions, I'll answer the questions. And I quite enjoy educating people about dementia. But my mum, for example, is a lot more shy than me. She's a lot more reserved. So if everybody's staring, it makes her uncomfortable and it puts her off wanting to take my nan out as much. And I think most people are probably wired like my mum, especially carers when you can be quite exhausted or slightly older. So that's what I really want to do. I just want restaurant staff and people in restaurants to sort of understand, okay, someone's dropped something on the floor, that does not matter the same way if a 5-year-old does it or an 85-year-old does it. We're all here to have a nice time.
Yeah, no, I think that's really important. And also, like, kids, obviously they're kids, right? They're learning and whatever. But that person who has dementia, like an older person, let's say, they've I feel like, they've given a lot to other people over their lives, right?
Yeah,
Especially
yeah.
like, a grandma, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
she's there with her family. They've given so much to people in their lives, so they really deserve that
Yes,
respect.
yeah.
I mean, I guess that's part of your whole thing where your patience comes from, right? Because it sounds like you do need a lot of patience.
I think it's easier to, I don't know if I said this earlier, because it's my grandmother that's being so demanding. And she's always been so patient with me, and grandparents always are more lenient to their grandchildren than their children,
my mum,
right?
totally.
Yeah. So I have a lot more patience because she's been so kind and so caring. If I was caring for my mum with dementia, I think we would bicker a little bit more because we already have that as a dynamic anyway, as most daughters, eldest daughters especially, do with their mothers. So that helps in itself. And also sometimes when she's really feisty, and this is quite a unique take on it, but I'm quite proud of her. So like if we get her ready for a bath, she's actually at the moment, because she's got a little bit weaker, we're giving her sponge baths at the moment, but usually before, for many years she was having a proper full-on bath. And being incontinent, you need a bath every morning. And she hated getting in the bath because of that. Obviously, generation doesn't like getting naked in front of people. We did try having carers. She didn't like that. So I was like, right, I'll do it. My parents were like, no, we really don't want you to have to be in charge of bath time on top of everything else. This is before I lived with her. And I was like, no, please let me try with bath time because it's not working with the carers. Like she's refusing. It's just escalating a lot. And I'm happy to talk about that in a moment. So I would get her into the bath. Say, come on, I need a bath. No. I'd managed to get her into the bath. I'd run this lovely bath. I'd put bubbles in it. I'd get all my posh lotions out because she loves that. So I'm like, oh, look, she's such a girly girl. So I'm like, you can have all this. She's ready for the bath. Eventually she'd give up. Yeah, okay, she'd get undressed. And then she'd just stand there. And I go, come on, you've got to get in the bath. And she'd have one of those special bath lift chairs. And she'd just refuse. And I go, no, come on, Nan. No, I'm all right. No, come on, Nan. And it would be... I'd say, but you try everything to coax them in, right? So first of all, you're like, oh, it's lovely. Look at the bubbles. It's lovely and warm. I'd love to have a bath like that. Oh, you can get in it then, love. I'm like, no. Well, it's nice to have a fresh bath for the day. We'll have a lovely day today if you just quickly get ready. And then she's like, no, I'm quite happy. I'm okay. Then you get a bit frustrated. Nan, you really do need to have a bath. It's important. You'll get sore if you don't. Don't speak to me like that. I don't want to have a bath. If it's that important, you have it. And you go through all these different stages. I've rang my mum and dad up before. Mum, can you try and ask? I've got Nan here. She's ready to get in the bath. Can you try and speak to her? Mum go, oh, Mum, I hear you're going to have a lovely bath. And she's like, oh, I'm not. I'm afraid I'm not. And, so I've tried everything to sort of get in that bath. And occasionally, because she's Irish and like an Irish Catholic, she'd be quite feisty and all the swear words would come out. And that really didn't bother me. I just thought there's a bit of fight in this lady. This lady's been through so much. The older generation, immigrants, poor, working class. I actually am really inspired by that fight. And sometimes I think I need to channel that when someone's telling me to do something I don't want to do. Whereas my little sister is a lot more sensitive. And she's stronger than me in some ways, but sensitive in others. Yeah. And when she's helped occasionally with bath time, my nan would never swear at my sister because my sister's one of the babies of the family. But obviously when you're the main carer, the dynamic is very different. And my sister would get upset. And sometimes I'd go, once we'd had the baths, I'd go and see Emily sat, that's my sister, in the living room looking all sad. I said, what's the matter? She said, I don't like Nan speaking to you like that. You do so much and she's telling you to F off and she's telling you this and she's calling you that. And I said, I promise you, I'm not upset with all those swear words. Because I would say they're not personal, but actually sometimes she's quite crafty. She knows that I've got really thick glasses and she goes, you there with your ratty hair and your big glasses. And I'm like, well, your brain's working somewhere. And I'm quite large-chested. And if I was wearing a low-cut top, like, even just a vest top, she'd go, you got your chest out. You think you're great trying to get me to do this. So, but I honestly just see the humour in it. And I
actually love her. Yeah. I think it's hilarious.
So it's really, but other family members get upset watching me getting a little bit of the abuse. Now, I'm so lucky there was a stage maybe 10% of her was like that and 90% was loving. I do understand that with dementia for a lot of people, it's the other, it's 90% abuse and 10% loving, if that. So I do appreciate that. But I also think to a degree, and there will be some people that give nothing but love and get nothing but abuse back. But sometimes you've just got to read the energy in the room. And if they're getting upset or frustrated, you've got to stay calm. And most people are rude dementia or no dementia, when they are frightened.
Yeah.
Like, even in real life, even if you have a manager at work and they're rude to you, it's because they're not secure in their position. If they really knew they were a really good manager and they really had faith in what they were saying, they'd probably deliver it quite calmly and with authority. But if they don't know what they're doing, they start blaming everybody else. And so it's kind of a life lesson, I just think, with Nan. Like, when she's most difficult is when she's most frightened and she needs the most love.
Yeah.
And I know, as I say, I'm very blessed that she's very loving, but there has been times where she's trying to fight me. I mean, yeah, she's strong, she's got a grip on her, and she'd try and fight me, and I'll just wrap my arms around her and cuddle her, and she'd be going, get off, get off. And then eventually in that cuddle, she has not a cry, but a little bit of relax, and I go, you're frustrated, aren't you? She says, yes. And I go, I know, it must be horrible, Nan. Come and sit down. I know it must be so horrible. And then we managed to reset, and that's, I think, what's harder if it wasn't a family member. If it's an external carer, like in a care home or something, they probably, I don't know the rules, but they're probably not allowed to put their arms around them and hold them tight until they stop. So there's little things you can sort of be a little bit more intrusive with if you're family.
Yeah.
And she does respond well to that, so that's good.
Was there any question of putting her in a care home?
For me, no. I would really want to do everything that I could. And I mean, never say never. And also with, what if I suddenly got really poorly and couldn't do it? Or, there's lots of different... But for me, no, there's never been. And I don't know how she might progress and what might happen. And I know there's some people that desperately want to care, and their doctors actually say it's not safe anymore for you to do the caring. So that day could come, and I don't want to be naive and say it won't. But for me, I would want to have tried everything myself until that day happened. I mean, as I say never. And she still knows who I am, and I think that makes a big difference. I do understand for some people they might be giving everything to somebody, and if they absolutely have no recollection of who the person is, that would be quite difficult. Yeah. But then I also think, even if that day comes, again, maybe naive, but even if that day comes, I still know who she is. So if the day comes she forgets me, all those memories don't go away, all that love doesn't go anywhere. And a lot of people with dementia, they can still sense love. That I hear that from a lot of people who their family member has completely forgotten them. But they say, but I just know when I'm holding hands, they know something. And I think that is so precious. And also, I think as humans, we shouldn't just do things so people remember it. Any good deed, I don't do a good deed so that forevermore that person remembers I did a good deed and is thankful to me. I do the good deed because I want to do something nice for somebody. So when, not necessarily my family, but I know in some families, people don't visit, so that's no point, they don't know who I am. It's like, well, if they can't, or they won't remember the visit, well, don't do the visit so that they're grateful that you've done it, and in weeks to come, do it so that in that moment they feel reassured and they feel happy and they feel love.
Yeah. Amy, what support do you get?
My mum and dad are incredible. It's like a 3-person job. I feel like even though I speak out about it, my mum and dad are very, very humble people. They do not seek the limelight at all. My mum always says I was born into the wrong family, because I always used to, when I was younger, say, I've pitched to BBC News that I'm going to do about this, and I've pitched that. And she'd be like she, quite proud lady, doesn't like that kind of, and also my mum never seeks attention for herself. She could do the most incredible thing and you wouldn't even know about it. It's very humble. And she used to say to me, you've been born into the wrong family. You should have been born into the Kardashians. You just love oversharing. And so I always have her in my head when I do any public speaking about it. What will mum say? What will she think? But actually, my mum, because she is so cautious and so private, when I do say to her, oh, Good Housekeeping have asked this, or you've invited me for this podcast, I know if my mum gives my blessing, and my mum is 10 times more cautious than my nan, then that reassures me that, okay, actually it's the right thing to do. But my mum tends to take care of the finances of my nan, running the household for my nan, sort of medical appointments, things like that. She's sort of in charge of that. She's got a massive folder. And then my dad is incredibly practical. And I mean, my dad deserves an MBE. What he does is amazing. He comes around every morning and every evening to help me, sometimes just does spot checks in the day. Which when I've been because I work from home most of the time. So if there's a time where I'm super, super busy and I can't even breathe, it's wonderful if he comes in and sort of looks out for her. Other times it's, you've got 2 adults trying to care for one person in, I imagine parenting, differences of opinions on things. And I think you should do this. He should, don't give her any more to eat now. And I'm like, no, she hasn't eaten enough today. And then he sees I'm feeding her. I said, she's going to be sick. All of those little sort of family bickers. But yeah, my dad, I never, ever, ever have had to turn down a thing I've wanted to do, whether that's a social thing, a work thing, I need to go for a walk thing, my dad would always be there and always step up. And I say he's not a blood relative, so I think that's incredible that he does that.
That's a really unique and special
yeah.
thing.
And then we did try private carers. So when my granddad was still alive and my nan was first showing signs of it, we knew that bath time might be quite risky, quite dangerous, because we don't know how to bath an adult that's not got full mental capacity. So first of all, we had NHS carers, and I know that there are some incredible carers in the NHS, and I'm a massive advocate for the NHS. You know, we're so blessed to have it in this country. But because caring is very badly paid, because there's such a shortage, it's not always the right people who become carers. And I think the good carers would say that themselves. People that are there for the right reasons will feel that about some of their colleagues. So when we had carers come in, they were late, like really, really late. I mean, if you're preparing someone for a bath and they're 2 hours late, that person's been anxious for 2 hours now.
Yeah.
It was a different person every time. I do appreciate that is a staffing issue and that that's not an individual issue. That's not their fault. But when somebody's becoming naked in front of somebody else and something so intimate as bathing,
they need to build up a relationship
100%.
with them.
And some would be quite rude, if I'm honest. I don't think they'd had the right training for someone with dementia, so they'd be quite rude. Or they'd take her at face value. So if she says, I don't want a bath, they'd say, okay, no problem, and then they'd leave. Right. And then we're like, what was the point of this? So we always said, will you ring us? Like, here's our numbers to the carers. These are our numbers. So ring us if she says, I don't want to get in a bath. We'll come round. We'll coax her for you so you don't feel in an awkward position, but you actually do it. But no one ever did. Then we got private carers. We had, I mean, I could talk about that all day, some of the issues we had with that. Some were angels sent from heaven, some were the most lovely. Remember, there was one lady, she used to come in and do the conga with my nan, because my nan wouldn't go to the bath, so she'd sit on the chair and go, I'm not going. Then they'd go, get up and dance with me. So my nan would stand up and she'd go, let's do the conga. So they'd do the conga into the bathroom. And then you just hear laughter eventually. I'm like, all right, she's worn Nan down. Nan's got in the bath and, you know, she's taken pride in it. There's some people that take such pride and they deserve so much more money, so much more respect. But there is an awful lot that just don't want to be doing that job. And it is a challenging job. Most people don't dream of changing and bathing old ladies as their career, you know. But if you do it well, I think it can be very rewarding. So we stopped with the private carers because it just made everything so much harder. I was either having debates with them where they were being quite disrespectful, or I was trying to, you know, if I am working from home, if I want to have my own career, if I work from home, then I'll have Zooms with managers at certain times, right? So if a carer says I'm coming at 11 and they don't come till 2, well, what if my Zoom is at 2? Then I'm going to become flaky at work. Then I could be at risk of losing my job. And that's not going to benefit anybody, including the economy. So it just became, if people can't be punctual to a degree, I'm talking within, like, you know, we're all human, but extremely late or extremely rude, it just made sense for me to just do it myself. You know, you can just quickly get it done and then you can carry on with your day and the day can progress rather than you're waiting for someone to visit. So it's, I say, me, my mum and dad are the three main, and my sister helps out when she can. She's got a very busy job, but she's great. If I'm like, I need you to do this because I can't be there, she'll do that as well.
Is there a payment for being a carer?
There is. I'm an unpaid carer at the moment, but there is. As I understand it, I think it's £89 a week, which obviously isn't much at all.
Not a lot, no.
You get, as I understand it, I'm not a paid carer. I'm working at the moment, but I think then you can get things subsidised, like housing and council tax and things like that. But yeah, I would say that's not a lot to live off. And I think there's a lot going on with carers at the moment. There's a situation at the moment where the government overpaid some carers or are claiming that they were overpaid. I'm talking about 150,000 people, not a couple of admin errors. And they're now trying to claim it back from everybody. But these people are on the breadline anyway. They're really struggling financially. You can't live off that small money anyway. Yeah. To now be told you're in debt to the government and you need to pay this out of your already small amount is outrageous. And I know there's lots of campaigns to try and minimise that and stop that. And I think with caring, it needs to be given the same respect, if not more, as maternity leave. I think if maternity leave was incredibly low, I mean, arguably it is still far too low, but I feel like when maternity issues change and benefits and rights change, there's a bit more fight behind it, there's a bit more publicity behind it, because it's generally people of childbearing age have a bit of fight in them still, they're a bit younger. Most carers are a lot older, and I think they're so worn down with the day-to-day tasks, they wouldn't even know how to start a campaign on social media or how to start talking about it. And also, I imagine when you have a baby, you're so proud of it that you don't mind talking about maternity with your friends, because it's part and parcel of being a parent and being a mother. But people can be quite hush-hush about being a carer, whether they feel that's out of respect to the person they're caring for, whether they want to put on a front that everything's fine at home, you don't need to worry about us, whether they're scared of social services getting involved and then forcing people into care homes. I mean, I don't think that's as common as conversations I hear that from a lot of elderly people. They're going to take her away, not about my nan, about their situation. And I don't think it's that black and white, especially now the care homes are so overrun. But all that fear, there's not pride in it the way there is with showing off a new baby. It's a decline, and therefore I think people almost accept their fate if it's a small amount of money. And I think that's really sad, because actually to do care at home, whether it's paid or unpaid, you're saving the government an awful lot of money from people being in hospital beds or needing more hospital care. You know, you're taking over so many extra jobs, and
it's not easy. Like everything you're telling me, this is quite a lot of hard work. Well, and I know that you want to do it.
Yeah.
But it is, and it's a lot of time and patience. You know, you said that carers, a lot of them are older. Obviously, you're not old.
Yeah.
You're young. You
Thank
know,
you.
You've got a lot going for you.
Thank you,
You're
darling.
beautiful, and you've got a social life. How are you managing all of that? Friends, relationships, career, with being a carer?
I feel very lucky being a younger carer, that I do have that energy, because I do think at the end of the day of caring, as long as mum or dad have come to sit and watch Nan, maybe because she goes to bed quite early now, she goes to bed at like actually 4 o'clock in the evening, which is really early. But it's because of in the winter it gets dark at 4. So there's a thing with dementia, sorry to divert your question, but just this is quite important I think for people to know about dementia. There's a thing called sundowning. So when it starts to get dark at dusk, people with dementia get really anxious that they want to go home, and that could be anything from when they were younger and used to play out. You know, people don't have smartphones in that generation. It would just be the street lamps going on meant it's time to go home. To it being the end of the day anywhere. If you're at a guest house, if you were at school, if you're at work, it starts to get dark, it's home time. To it just being it's night time, and therefore, you know, you need to be with your parents. So when my nan was in that stage of asking to go home all the time, oh my goodness, like from 3 o'clock to 5 o'clock was a nightmare. And if I was working from home, I will try and keeping her from begging to go home.
Right.
That's when she would say, I need to go to mum and dad now, it's getting dark. And obviously you can't stop it getting dark because there's nothing you can do. And that would be the time where often at work, that's where your deadline's due, right? 5 o'clock, they want to have the end of day meeting, and you're like, I need to try and get her to bed before like 5, because that's when she's going to be more argumentative or more ratty. And so, so sundowning meant that we would then put her to bed at 4, because that's when it is dark, and that's when she would want to be asleep. And if she's asleep, she's not anxious anymore. And also sometimes she'd put herself to bed at that time, because she's, right, I'm not going to get to go home. There's nothing to do. She'd be sad, especially when my granddad passed. There's no one to chat to. She'd put herself to bed at 4. And then obviously once that becomes somebody's bedtime, it kind of stays the same even when the seasons change. Although now she's in a new phase where she falls asleep at 4, has the deepest sleep till about 8, and then is awake from about 8 to 11. And she loves, and this is a tip I would say for anyone with dementia, is the programmes people will enjoy will likely change. So my nan now loves action films. She would have hated an action film growing up. She was not she loved Coronation Street and Songs of Praise, and the soaps was kind of it. She wasn't, and a nice romantic film, a nice black and white film. But you can't follow those storylines if you've got dementia. There's too much going on. So an action film, a scene where a car chase where someone's running away, or if someone's got a gun and the music as they're coming around the door, she is engrossed, because
She's
you
die
only
hard, Fast and the Furious, that kind
because
of thing.
you only need a 10-second understanding to follow what's actually happening, right? So, and at 8 to 11, there's loads of those films on TV. So so she'll usually watch an action film then. She also loves The Simpsons, because bright colours, and I love watching The Simpsons with her, because as an adult with full mental ability, it's very clever. It's hilarious. But as somebody who can't quite follow a storyline, it's quite slapstick. So she loves that, and she loves cooking shows because they talk to you. So she believes the TV is talking to her now. And actually that's been really lovely, because even though that was a real shift of realising, oh my gosh, her dementia's really bad now because she believes the TV's talking to her, it actually really stopped her feeling so lonely, because when she realised that, when she thought the TV was just a TV, she was sitting there thinking, why am I sitting watching TV? I want to be with my mum and dad, or I want to be out. And she'd get frustrated. But once she believed the TV is talking to her, it's almost like having someone in the living room. So Ant and Dec are a favourite, because when they're going, hello, or you saw last night this happened, she's like, yes, I did, love, yeah. At night, when the newsreader says, have a lovely night, she's like, you have a nice night too, love. You know, and so I hear her laughing her head off when they're, have you tried strawberries yet this season? Like the chef showing them, and she goes, I haven't had any strawberries yet. So she's really engaging. So that's why her bedtime, that's why how her bedtime has progressed. And then you asked me about juggling it all. I feel like, I genuinely feel like, so my priority is the wrong word. My friends are so important to me, as you know. So I'm completely single, and I'm actually really, really content single at the moment, if I'm honest. I think that's also, if I'm brutally honest, because I am getting so much love from her. So it's not like when you're fully single and you go home and you're alone. I mean, I've been single living by myself or living with housemates who you don't know particularly well. That can actually be more lonely than going home and watching an action film with Nan. You know, that's quite sweet. But that means that I can then give more time to my friends, because I'm not giving time to a relationship, and they are a massive priority. But realistically, obviously my career has to, I have to earn money. I have to make a life for myself. And I can honestly say I don't think my work has suffered at all. I think I'm very privileged in that, because I've got my mum and dad that can step in, and there's a lot of carers that won't be able to say that. But I am blessed. I've not really had to have the conversation with employers, if I'm honest. And I think that's the credit for that is the pandemic meant that lots of people started working from home. So it might have been different if that wasn't the case. But if I'm completely honest, in my situation, my parents would have said, you go to work 9 to 5, we'll come here. So I have that support. But the reason I can work from home so much is because any team I'm put on to do a podcast, I do a lot of podcast producing, a lot of that is from home anyway. It's all done remote, or you're just in the office 2 days a week. And then when I've worked on the Love Island podcast, that's evening work. So we work through the night. So again, I'm actually love that, because I can be with my parents. I can be with my nan in the day, and have real quality time with her. And then at night I can go to work, and it's using a different part of my brain. So I find it's okay, and I feel like my friends are really understanding. I feel like if I had, and maybe it's being a little bit older, being in my 30s. I think maybe in my 20s, it's if you're not there, you get left out, right? That's why FOMO is so strong in your 20s. And in your 30s, you're like, you guys go ahead, I'm chilled. And I know my real friends will love me regardless, and I'll love them regardless. So, and they're busy with their children. So I actually don't feel like anything's really suffered. I feel like it's more holidays I haven't gone on. If I have gone away in the last 3 years, I've never gone away for longer than 4 nights, because my parents, I'm happy to leave them to it for 4 nights. But I think once it gets to past that, it's quite a lot for them as well, because they're older too, like they're aging. So it's always been sort of 4-night holidays. Whereas if I wasn't in this situation, one of my best friends lives in Australia, I probably would go there for 3 weeks and work remotely in her house. I'm sure she might be listening to this being like, oh, right. But she always invites me over. She's like, come. And I would be able to maybe see a bit more of the world, make the most of not being in an office and work remotely. And there probably would be a lot richer things I would be doing. But my life has stayed quite consistent since the pandemic. So we all had to really stop socialising in the pandemic. That's when that correlated with when Nan's health started to decline. So it's kind of been a linear. I don't really feel I'm socialising any more than I did in the pandemic, if that makes sense. Kind of quite similar. But I haven't missed out on anything I've really wanted to do. So that's good.
So Amy, thank you so much for coming and talking to me about your nan. And thank you for being so honest and open and sharing. And I know that it's, you are treading that fine line, and it's about your nan's dignity as well. Yeah. But I think it's so important for people to hear this conversation. Is there anything else that you think people need to know if a family member or loved one has been diagnosed with dementia and they are trying to care for them in some way?
I think just don't be scared. As in, you are naturally going to be scared. It would be very naive to say, don't be scared. How do you remove the emotion of fear? You can't. But I would say maybe embrace it, and don't be scared in the terms of what people are shocked with my nan is I'm just so like hands-on with her. Like, I'll give her a big bear hug. I'm not like, oh, this frail old lady, oh my goodness. I'm like, you all right, Nan? Like, jump on her, hug her. It's Halloween, right? We're going to dress you up. We dressed up as Mario and Luigi. You know, I love her trying new foods. We had Mexican night the other night, and I put this big sombrero on her head, and we were eating Mexican food. And, you know, this is your new reality. There isn't a cure. Let's do everything we can to get a cure. But while it is the reality, let's try and make the happy moments where we can. Obviously ask for help where you can, but I feel like asking for help is something that's always rammed down our throats. And you can ask for help, but it needs to be the people who want to give the help. And I'm not talking about the healthcare professions. I'm not talking about the NHS or the paid carers. I'm talking about the wider family. I hear with my own friends I know have massive hearts. They have grandparents who are in care homes, and I say, oh, when was the last time you saw them? Not in an accusing way, just in a conversational way. And they go, oh, it's been a while. I probably should see them, really. I need to get round to it. It's been ages. And I just think you usually can make time. I appreciate there's people that are, as a society now, we're all so short on time. We've all, got the demands of our phone going off, meant to be available 24/7 on our phones. We've got family commitments, we're commuting, we've got all of this. But try and find time for people that need it, the carers themselves, the person, because normally in most families, one person, or in our case 3 people, end up doing well more of the lion's share of the caring. And if everybody else stepped up 10% more, even if you said, right, once a month I'm going to spend Sunday with Nan, and then if you've got 10 grandchildren and they all decide to do that, that gives that carer every Sunday off, So just work as a team, and don't think, oh, I should get round to it, I should go and ask, I should, because time goes so quickly for the people that are living their lives, but it can go so slowly for the people that are doing the caring. And and then if you help with the more tangible manual tasks like the food shop or whatever, then you're giving the actual carer more quality time where they can do the joyous things. Just think of it as like, if you know a family member who's had a baby, they need that extra support. They might not ask for it. You text saying, do you need anything? And they say no. Bring it. Don't just ask for it. Bring the support. And then, I think the world will just be a nicer place. And you can get some nice memories out of it as well. And then when they pass, maybe there'll be a little bit less guilt. I think a lot of us are walking around with guilt that we should have done more for people that are no longer here.
100%.
And that can play havoc with our mental health. So if you try and do more when it's in front of you, there's never going to be a perfect time. But then once that period of time has passed, you'll have peace that you did all you could.
Thank you so much, my darling. It's been lovely
talking to you. I could talk all day. Thank you for being so respectful. Thank you very much.
No, it's been lovely having you. And thank you so much for tuning in. I hope that you have found this episode helpful, useful, maybe even entertaining in parts. And I'll catch you on the next one. Bye.